Hello, everyone. This is my paraprofessional training PowerPoint, and the topic that I chose to do my training on is encouraging peer involvement in the general education classroom. So first things first, why are peer relationships important? Peer relationships are important because they create lasting friendships between the students, they increase social achievement of IEP goals, enhance their skill acquisition and generalization, and increase inclusion in the future environments. They also provide greater opportunities for interaction. All of these skills are essentially important for students who have disabilities because we want to include them in the general education classroom as much as possible and want them to feel included with the peers that are in that classroom and outside of the classroom. So I looked up some resources for this PowerPoint, and what the literature says about why teaching students social skills are so important is that they help students to explore adult roles such as coworker relationships within their career, support social skills as a member of the community, and social skills support the development of healthy adult relationships with family members and peers. These are essential for a student who is going through the transition process and services, because all of these are skills that transition students need as they graduate high school and begin employment or going to a community college or interacting with adults outside of the community. Um, One of the quotes that I highlighted is workers with intellectual disabilities who demonstrate competence in social skills are generally perceived more positively than those who lack such skills. And that was one of the quotes highlighted in one of the sources that I found that I thought was really important in showing why this is significant. And my sources are included at the end of the PowerPoint that I will point out. Peer skills that are needed by transition age students. Some of the skills are learning and using other people's names, describing one's own feelings when appropriate, participating in small talk, looking at the person who is speaking, building on others' comments and ideas, and greeting customers, which is essentially needed when the peer starts in the work environment. So these are some of the skills that a paraprofessional can highlight and emphasize to a student who has disabilities that they are working with who is at a transition age. So, some strategies to promote the peer interactions between students. One strategy is to ensure that the student is rich in social environment. This is some tips for this one is that the student should only be removed from the general education classroom when necessary. So, for example, the student will be removed from the general education classroom when it's time for them to go receive instruction in the resource room. And the time for the student to do this would be mentioned and recorded in the student's IEP. So if the paraprofessional ever needs to leave the classroom to maybe go by the office or something, sometimes they have a habit of taking the student they are working with them. And that's not needed or necessary. It ends up hurting the student. The paraprofessional should keep the student in the classroom as much as possible so that the student is surrounded by his or her peers. The paraprofessional should also look around the classroom for natural gathering places and encourage the student to join in those gatherings. So if the paraprofessional sees a group of students working maybe in a corner of the classroom, she could encourage the student she's working with to go join those students, and they could help each other with the assignment they are working on. Maybe if they're playing games for free time, the student can join in those games, things like that. Another thing the paraprofessional can do is highlight similarities between the students. So if the paraprofessional overhears a student talking about their favorite basketball team or something like that, she could initiate a conversation by saying, "Oh, Bob really likes to play basketball too. His favorite team is UK," or "Bob, why don't you tell, this student what your favorite basketball team is?" And that could initiate a conversation about basketball. Or let's say a student went to see last night's school play. The paraprofessional could say, "Oh, Lily went to go see the school play too. Lily, why don't you tell this student what your favorite part of the play was, or what you didn't like, or other things about it?" And that could really initiate a conversation between the two peers. Another strategy would be to redirect the conversation to the student. So if a student in the classroom asks you a question about the student you're working with, tell the student to ask the student you're working with directly. Sometimes students will come up to a paraprofessional and they'll say, what is Lily doing after school today? Or what is Lily going to play at recess? And sometimes paraprofessionals, to make it easier, will have a habit of answering for the student. So to avoid doing this, instead of answering for the student, the paraprofessional could say, I don't know what Lily's doing after school today. Why don't you ask Lily what she's doing after school today? And that encourages the student in the classroom to initiate and engage conversation with the peer you are working with. And that could get a conversation going as well. Another tip is to directly teach the student. You could directly teach a student to invite other students to play and interact. You can point out missed social cues to the student and model acceptable responses. And then if the students are nonverbal and use a communication device, you can ensure that proper greetings and social responses are programmed into their device. So, for example, on the missed social cues, if a student were to come up to the student you're working with and would say, can I borrow a pencil? And let's say the student you're working with completely ignores that student, and then the student walks away. You could point out to the student that you're working with, say, hey, this student asked to borrow you a pencil and you didn't respond to them. What do you think that you should have done in that situation? Or something like that. And then you and the student you're working with can talk about it, and you can model for them what an acceptable response would have been, and then you can practice again so that when the situation arises again, the student will know what to say or do. And these are just some pictures of social cue cards that could be used for middle and high school students. I went on Pinterest and search some of these. Pinterest has a variety of resources for social skills that you can use for students you are working with. And they have picture supports. They show you how to use verbal supports, prompting and cueing, everything. Another strategy is to provide behavioral supports that are social. So this includes providing behavior rewards that involves other students. It makes it fun for all the students. So I really like this one because it's rewarding the student for achieving a goal, and then you're also achieving the goal even further by providing social interaction as a reward. So some examples are going to the movies with other students after school, or shooting basketball with a peer in the gym, or maybe selecting 2 peers to have lunch with the teacher. You could really do anything as long as social interaction is involved. And then the last one is make interdependence a goal. We focus on teaching students to be independent so much, but it's okay to teach them to rely and work with other students as well. And you can really use peer supports to accomplish this goal. So some examples are having a peer buddy help the student carry his or her lunch tray to the table, or have the student return a book to the library with a peer, or even passing out papers with a partner. This is where a school-wide peer buddy system would really benefit the student, as in you could have a peer buddy work with the student, help with homework, help do daily and physical tasks throughout the school day. You could train that person on how to work with the student, and that would just increase social interaction all throughout the day. So some helpful hints to teach peer interaction skills are to use a pre-correction strategy, so you can give reminders, review, and practice behavior in advance. You could use a coaching strategy where you instruct the student on how to use the skill, you prompt the skill, and then you react with praise and feedback. And then you could use a modeling strategy as well, where you demonstrate and model the desired social behavior for the student. That's kind of similar to coaching. Prompting as well, you can use visual cues and reminders, and you can also praise the student. So when the student does a desired behavior, you can praise and reward the student, and then the student will likely do that behavior, will repeat that behavior. So let's not forget, this is a quote that I really like, that paraprofessionals are an essential support that allows a student to be educated within an inclusive classroom environment.